Howdy, Ags. AP and Corey here from the Tailgate, where we talk Aggie football every day. Brought to you
Every
by
day.
brought to you by Frida Homes, building Aggie dreams. FridaHomes.com. Visit them. Take a look at what they can provide. Email us at agstailgate@gmail.com. Comment on our YouTube page, YouTube channel. Leave us comments on the Instagram, Facebook. We'll integrate it into the show. Corey, what's the word, brother?
Not much, buddy. Just ready to get after it today.
Amen, man. So today we'll be talking best defenses in the SEC, best defenses in the SEC for 2022, and we're going to talk a little bit about Jimbo's comments the other day. But let's start with some news and notes specifically about baseball. Nice sweep of Mississippi State this past weekend, 8-7 on Friday. Detmer, who's been our best starter throughout the year, had one of his worst games, but the Bats picked him up, getting 8 runs on 9 hits. Pretty impressive. The help of 7 walks in there as well. And then, Moss and Rock, both good games on the Friday night game. Warner had a home run, and then Saturday a 9-6 win. Cortez was excellent in relief, coming in 5 innings and only allowing 1 run. Man, he just shut them down, allowed that offense to get rolling a little bit and put some runs on the board. And then Warner hits another home run that night. So he had 2 hits on Saturday. Clonch and Targak both have 2 hits that day. Rock with a home run. So some different guys obviously contributing to that win. And then Sunday they sort of walk away with it with an 8-2 win where pitching really showed up as their best game there on Sunday. So Targak another 3 hits. So, great performance over the weekend, beating a Mississippi State team that, while has not been playing very well lately, obviously they were national champs last year, so pretty impressive.
What are they tied for first now or something like that? They're up there in the rankings in the SEC.
Aggies are in first place in the SEC West.
Pretty impressive.
And yeah, especially where they were last year and where they were predicted to be at the beginning of the season this year. Everybody had them towards the bottom of the SEC, and here they are with an opportunity to close out the year against Ole Miss and win an SEC West regular season title. Next game against Incarnate. Oh, wait a minute. Canceled. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
That's the big news right now around Texas Ags is that the game was canceled because they're saying that it wouldn't do anything except for ruin the Aggies' RPI or whatever if they won or lost. So the game got canceled.
Well, I'll say this: I don't like it. The game's on the schedule. Play the damn game.
Right.
Your RPI be damned.
Yep.
Now, it is what it is. It ain't the end of the world. They weren't going to go lose to Incarnate Word. I'm sure Incarnate Word didn't want to take the butt whooping, but I'm sure they also would have appreciated the cash that was going to be paid over for them to come and play. So,
Right.
So game's canceled. Some people are arguing that, it's a mutual thing, yada yada yada. It's fine. Well, I'd hate to say it this way, but how about the fans? Whoa, folks are getting excited at the house over there.
Yeah, getting a little rowdy out there.
How about the fans that had planned to come into College Station to go watch that game, and it was maybe the only game that they had a chance to come and watch all season long, and they're the ones missing out. So I think it's kind of chicken shit, but whatever. We'll move on.
Yeah, it's a midweek game. I mean, it gives people something to talk about too, something to like us. So it is what it is.
Ole Miss starts Thursday night, tomorrow night in Oxford. They're 31-19 overall, but 13-14 in the SEC. Now they've been playing a lot better as of late. They've won 7 straight, including a sweep of LSU this past weekend. So, they're not going to just show up and roll over for the Aggies. The Aggies are going to have to go win that SEC West title if they want it. So,
should be good.
All right. So now to football, baby.
I'm ready.
And before we get to the defenses in there, I want to start with this. So Jimbo, the other day was at a Houston Touchdown Club event, and he starts talking about playoff expansion and the fact that the playoffs should be expanded. And Corey, I think we've discussed it a little bit. I agree, playoffs should be expanded. I'd like it to go to 8. Now, a lot of people want to say 12 or 16. I'm a proponent of 8. I think it'd be awesome to have that sort of tournament and everything else at the end of the football season. I think you'd get incredible viewership and in what's going on there. So I believe that honestly, it gets you all the Power 5 conference champions and a few other teams in that gives you an opportunity to really prove who's the best in the country, right? Because you don't have to account for the discrepancies in the different conferences and whatnot. So I like that idea.
Man, I agree with you. I mean, if Division 2 can get it right, why can't we? I don't understand why D1 can't get it right. It's that's the only time of year I really watch D2 football. I mean, it's exciting watching their playoff. Any kind of playoff is exciting. Watching always rooting for the underdog to beat the head honcho. But 8 teams is fine. I mean, I'd like to see 16 if that's what they can do. But 8's fine. It's better than nothing. Better than 4.
It's better than 4, and it's better than 2, and it's definitely better than none. And
plus, it gets those bowl games that don't mean anything, where these players are all opting out. The players won't opt out as much. I mean, you get 16 or 18 or 18 teams or whatever teams in there. You got something to watch and something to play for. These guys won't be opting out. These other games, there's too many bowl games right now as there is in my book.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't want to get rid of the bowl games or anything like that. I like the traditional part of that of college football in that sense, and let those kids play and get some more game time. I mean, I'm all for it, man.
There's too many. There's like 50 bowls right now. It's like every team makes a bowl. It's ridiculous.
It's true. There is a ton, but it also provides for some entertainment throughout that December month. So, I don't watch them all, but I watch a lot of them, or at least parts of a lot of them, and I don't mind it.
I gotcha.
They don't, but you're right. They don't have much meaning, right? It's pageantry and whatnot. So it is what it is. At the end of the day, as far as the playoffs are concerned, to me, I think that the bigger you make those playoffs, the more you dilute the regular season. And I love the fact that college football is every game is important, right? And to me, that only happens if those playoffs are limited to a certain extent. Once you start, making it 16 or 32 or whatever, all of a sudden, you can go through, lose a couple of games, and you're not worried about it. You're going to get in, and then you can go play then. So I don't love that. I like it at a smaller number, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, you're usually wrong, so I'd say you are now again. 16 is a good number.
So let me go a little bit further into what Jimbo had to say the other day, and I'm going to tell you, man, Jimbo sounds like a whiny bitch. Bunch of excuses, and having no accountability for what the hell he's done with this team so far. And look, I've said it time and time again. I like Jimbo, and I like what he's done with this program and how he's built this program. He has not accomplished a damn thing yet. The guy has not come close to winning a conference championship. He has not come close to getting into the playoffs. Now, he hasn't even come close to winning an SEC West championship. The one year that they had one loss and were sort of in the running, Alabama beat them by almost 30. Okay, they weren't close to that Alabama team. He sounds like he's making a bunch of excuses and not taking any accountability for where things at. Look, at the end of the day, he's not going anywhere. They're not firing him. They owe him way too much money. He's got more years to sort of prove whatever he's going to do. And I like a lot of what he's done. But don't come out here and start making excuses about the performances that the Aggies have had. He goes in and, he won a natty at Florida State, and that was during the BCS computer ranking time of football. Two teams played for a championship. That's it. There wasn't a 14 playoff, right? And he's talking about, well, he wants expansion. But instead of just saying, okay, I want expansion, oh, no, let me go back. I'm kind of old school. Let me go back to the old days. Nobody wants to go back to those damn days. That's a bunch of garbage. And also, here's the thing. The old days is back in the day, they didn't have 1 versus 2 play at all. Remember those days? They used to decide it based on the polls alone. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all traditionalist my ass. You can take that and shove it, okay? The way things were crap. It's gotten better with the 14 playoffs. At least we have 4 teams competing for a championship. Should it go up to 8? Maybe. Should it go up to 12? Maybe. 16? Whatever? Maybe. But don't give me this other garbage, all right? And here's the other thing. He goes in and he wants to claim that in 2020 they missed out on the playoffs. They should have been in. And he wants to say, oh, we were probably the second best team in the country. Listen, Jimbo, prove it on the freaking field. Because Ohio State was undefeated, and then they went off and beat Clemson by like 30, all right, in the playoffs. So don't tell me you were better than them. You lost to Alabama by 30 when you had a chance to go prove it on the field. If you thought you were the second best team in the country and wanted to have an opportunity to get into the playoffs, at least have a showing against Alabama. How about show up for the game? Here's the other thing. Your best win was against Florida, a Florida team that had 4 losses. Count them, 4 losses. So don't tell me that was a great win. 9-1, who would you beat? You almost lost to Vanderbilt. I mean, and then in the bowl game, you struggled to beat a UNC squad who, by the way, was missing half their freaking roster. Man. This idea of we were the second best team in the country, that's a joke. Because you didn't even show up for your bowl game. And the idea that, hey, we could have had a run. He said, oh, man, I'd like to have had a second shot at that. No, you wouldn't have. You'd have got beaten by 40 that time. He can shut his damn mouth. Shut his damn mouth, Corey.
Hey, Jimbo's a salesman. He knows what he's doing. He's getting people like you and me talking about it, and that's what he wants. People are talking about it, and you're picking up what he's laying down. He's loving this right here. He's going to get on Ags Tailgate later on this week and watch you say this, and he'll be like, man, that guy he ate up everything I said.
These are all the same damn excuses that Texas has every day on the radio. Yep. Oh, man, they could have won a natty in 2020. That's BS.
They've been saying this at Aggie Land for years, man. Every year, they should have done this. And hey, the games are played on the field. 9-1, good record. It's the best record we've had around here in a while. I mean, wasn't a bad team.
They didn't play Ole Miss that year either, right? They didn't play Ole Miss.
No, the game got canceled.
Game got canceled. They very well could have lost that one too.
Now, Ole Miss is lucky. They're lucky. Just like Alabama was lucky we didn't play them again. A lot of teams are lucky. Yeah. That was probably the best Vandy team they've had in a long time, by the way.
Hey, according to Texas, last year we lost because of injuries. That's BS, by the way.
Yeah.
They also say, it's unfair that we get all this criticism. BS. Don't do the shit that people criticize. And who gives a crap? People criticize everything.
Exactly.
The Texas, I'll tell you, the offense is pretty good. That's BS too, by the way. And Jimbo, the play caller, also BS that he's a good play caller. Also BS that he's a quarterback guru because the results on the field tell me he ain't. So quit your crying and produce. Aggie fans deserve better. That's all I'm saying.
They were talking about the yards per completion the other day about how Jimbo's actually regressed over the last so many years. It's pretty shocking. It's like we throw the ball downfield less than just about anybody else in the SEC in the nation. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, if you want to talk about being a traditionalist, that's pretty much the only thing he's a traditionalist in is his offense, that garbage ass offense that all they do is
Dink and dunk.
dink and dunk, and that's not even traditionalist because at least back in the day they still play action and try to go over the top the few times that they did throw it.
Yeah.
Add that to the run game, which makes a lot more sense than the garbage he's running. So, and man, I'm just fired up by this, man. I'm fired up about this because all this yapping, excuses. Don't give me any more excuses, man. You've got the best facilities in the country. You're getting paid as one of the best coaches in the country. You've got one of the most fertile recruiting grounds in the country. You've had some of the best classes, recruiting classes in the country. You got some of the best fans in the country, if not the best fan base in the country. So there's nothing you don't have. Don't tell me it's only year 4, mother. It's year 5, and you better start producing. That's my opinion.
I agree with you. I mean, we've been waiting for this every year. Oh, wait till next year. Oh, wait till next year. Well, next year's here. It's time to,
You know what the biggest joke of it all is? You know what the biggest joke of it all is? Is these retards out there that want to talk about, oh, he's a better coach than Kirby Smart. He's a better coach than Kirby Smart. Well, you know what Kirby Smart's done in the short time that he's been at Georgia? He's taken them to one national championship game, and he's won another one. That's one national championship game in year 2. By the way, it didn't take him 5, and then he won one. He also coaches the best defense in college football. Is he a defensive coach, Corey?
Yeah, he's a great defensive coach.
Our offensive coach doesn't coach the best offense in college football, does he?
No.
Interesting.
But hey, you can also say he's in the East. It's a lot different. The competition is a competition over there. You can't say Florida's where they have been. It's not like he's going through Alabama, Auburn, what we're having to go through to get to the top. You get in the SEC championship game every year.
I love how you bring in Alabama, Auburn. First of all, Auburn sucks. All right,
they do now.
Auburn
They were in the national championship a couple years ago.
The Mississippi schools have replaced coaches in the last 3 years. So
we got better coaches over here than they do in the East. They got better coaches over here than they do.
Who else? LSU just fired their coach.
They get to play Vandy. Who else does Georgia get to play? Vandy every year. Missouri every year.
I mean,
Tennessee, now Tennessee's breathing again. I mean, they were beating Tennessee every year, South Carolina every year. Well, that's 4 teams right there. We just said 4 teams. They get to play every year.
Yeah.
Give me. Florida sucks. That's 5. Who's the other one? Who are we missing? Kentucky. Oh, the basketball school. Now they're good. That's 6.
So Georgia didn't beat Alabama this past season?
They beat them this year. So A&M beat Alabama this season. So A&M should
Georgia didn't. Oh, wait. Yeah, but then A&M went and lost 4 other games to the scrubs all over the league. So
I'm just saying they beat them. Because we got to run the gauntlet. We got to run the gauntlet over here. All you have to do is get up for one game.
I want to know where the
one game you got to get up for.
I want to know where the one game on the East. Because all the rest of these teams haven't done anything. They haven't done anything.
I'm just saying. You got to get up for it every game on the West. East, you get up for one game, and that's it.
The second best, the third best team in the SEC last year was Kentucky. So there you go.
Last year.
Well,
according to who'd they beat out of the West?
Hey, listen. Look at the damn records, baby.
I'm just saying.
Damn records.
I'm just telling you.
Production on the field, baby.
Yeah, production against who you play. You go by those stats. I mean,
but here's the thing: is that shit's going on nothing but reputation, though, man. That shit's going on nothing but reputation. Let's go back and look at those teams and see how good they actually were last year. They didn't do anything, man. Mississippi State, by the way, Mississippi State lost its bowl game last year to who?
I'm not sure who they lose to.
Ole Miss lost their bowl game too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Auburn lost to Penn State last year. You wanted me to keep going?
Penn State wasn't a bad team. That's a respectable loss.
It's like a 4-loss team in the Big Ten. But okay.
Big Ten, hey.
All right.
Ohio State, Michigan. Not bad teams.
The only respectable team in the SEC West other than Bama last year was Arkansas.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying. They beat up each other. You look at everybody, they beat up each other in the West. East, I just don't get it, man. If you tell me I get to play Missouri every year and I get to play Vanderbilt every year. I mean, we beat them by 5 2 years ago, and it's one of our best teams.
Look, but there's no doubt.
Vandy,
There's no doubt that last year especially, and probably in the last couple of years, Tennessee just last year, right? But Tennessee last year was one of the better teams in the SEC. Kentucky last year was one of the better teams in the SEC. Yeah, sure, they got Vandy and Mizzou, who were ridiculously horrible. But, take those guys out of the equation, and, it's the SEC West. It's the same shit. A bunch of teams in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I can see. I mean, but if you put Kentucky over here in the West, and they play every team in the West, do they have the same? Are they still the third best team in the SEC? Do you see what I'm saying? That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
If you put Tennessee over here and they play the same schedule, are they whatever they did last year? I mean, maybe. I don't know. The games need to be played on the field. You're not going to talk about it. And
no, absolutely. They do need to be played on the field. And all you can do is look at the results, right? And based off of results, the Aggies were 8-4 last year. That's what they were. They beat Alabama. Sure. They blind squirrel found a nut. All right. They lost to Arkansas, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and an LSU team that had half their team sitting on the bench. Not even on the bench. They were not even in the stadium. So prove it, baby. That's all I got to say. All right, Corey. Last week we talked 2022 offenses. We ranked them. We talked about which teams were going to be any good, which ones weren't. Today, let's talk about the defensive side of the football. And let's start here. Same thing as last week. It really all depends on what you talk about best defenses. But to me, you can do it versus on, total defense, that's yardage-wise, scoring defense, or maybe an efficiency sort of component. At the end of the day, just like last week with offense, as it turns out, you're getting pretty much the same teams in the same categories. Last year, obviously, Georgia was the best team in the best defense in the country, much less the SEC. And then A&M, scoring-wise, was number 2. There were some discussions about efficiency-wise, Bama better or not, but A&M really was probably the second best defense in the league. Bama's right in there, and then you get teams like Kentucky, Mississippi State, that had some pretty darn good years. So, depending on which ranking you look at, that's what happens. At the end of the day, the one thing that you will realize is Tennessee, Missouri, Vanderbilt were all horrendous when it comes to defense, and I do mean horrendous. So, looking ahead to 2022, man, let's start. Which of these teams is going to be elite defensively? Elite.
Who's going to be elite in 2022?
In 2022.
Well, I mean, Georgia's they recruited really well in the past, but you lose all those players through the draft. I mean, we lost our entire front four at A&M. They lost their front 8 almost. I mean, they lost a ton.
They did.
So it's hard for me to say they're going to be elite because, I mean, you lose the big man in the middle, Brown or whatever, and you lose a number 1 overall pick on the end. I mean, you're losing who some consider the linebacker to be one of their best players. I mean, they lost a ton of talent. So, I mean, it's hard for me to say them being elite, but he's built a big thing there. So they're going to be good. Alabama's got probably the best player coming back. They're going to be really,
I think that's
really
a perfect
good.
place to start. Alabama definitely has the best player coming back. He may be the best player in college football altogether in defensive end, outside linebacker Will Anderson, right?
Right. And then you got A&M. We just got the best recruiting class. I mean, hell, we recruited, I don't know what, probably 8 of the top next couple drafts linemen coming up. I mean, I'm talking we got future NFL lottery picks on that defensive line, but they haven't shown anything. So I'm saying for elite for next year, Alabama's going to be top of my list. That's my top right now.
I'll say this. I'm not sure. Let me rephrase that. No defense is going to be as good as Georgia's defense last year. I don't think any defense reaches that level of elite this year, or even maybe as good as the A&M defense was at times last year. I don't know that any defense reaches those levels. I do think that the three teams that you mentioned there, Georgia, A&M, and Alabama, are the top defenses in the SEC. I'd probably put them in the very good category and not elite, all three of them, because it's clear, right? Just as you said it, Georgia lost so much talent, man. And yeah, they've got high-end recruits. The one thing I give them is, and I said it earlier, Kirby Smart is probably the best defensive coach in the country. He's proven it year in and year out with what he's done over there. And so I think he gives them a chance to come back and be really darn good, really, really darn good, in spite of losing all that talent. But I just don't think they can get there without Davis and, the linebackers and, Nakobe Dean, and, all those guys, not to mention the folks that they lost in the secondary, 2 to the NFL, several to the transfer portal. I mean, it's too much talent, right?
Yeah. They lost a lot of talent. I'll tell you another team that's going to be pretty good is Auburn. I mean, they got a lot of players coming back, but they don't have the depth that these other teams have that we talked about. They don't have the top recruiting classes the last couple of years to fill those holes of when guys get tired. So, I mean, they're going to be good for the first quarter.
The only thing that worries me about Auburn, and I agree with you, I think their first group is probably pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the depth, as you said. They also lost their defensive coordinator. Mason left. And so now it's a matter of, okay, what does this new defensive coordinator do? He's a guy that came that was at Boise State with Harsin for some time over there. And he had one good year at Boise State his first year, and then the second year they got worse, right? And that's in a program where they had more talent than the teams that they were facing around them, right? So I'm not sure that this guy can replicate what Mason did last year. I would put Auburn in a category below the teams that we've talked about. Bama is Will Anderson, some pieces there around him that are good, solid players. I think their linebacking core is really good, right? And experienced. But they got to replace some pieces in the secondary too. Now, when Will Anderson's rushing the quarterback, maybe those guys don't have to cover very long.
Right.
But it's not like they're just dominant at every position. They're more of they're very dependent on that one guy. And I do want to bring in, his production, right? Last year, the guy had 17 and a half sacks. Corey, that
Anderson
number
had that many?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. That's 4th best season all time in college football history, son.
It's a lot.
Hutchinson, who got drafted number 1 overall, had 14.
Yeah, it's a difference maker. It's a game changer right there.
Let me ask you this. Do you know who has the most sacks in a season by an Aggie?
I'd always go Vaughn, but I'm not sure who it is.
You're absolutely correct. It's Vaughn. He had 17 one year, pretty close to that 17 and a half. Real nice.
Yeah.
Real nice go on that. I promise you won't guess who's number 2.
Aggie, number 2?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a linebacker or a defensive lineman? What's that guy's name? The tall, skinny guy that played
He's a D lineman.
He played D end, almost a hybrid outside linebacker. I can't remember. He got drafted really high. I thought he had 12 sacks one season, but I can't remember.
Well, obviously, most people would probably think our number 1 draft pick. Number 1 draft pick.
No, he fell asleep in too many games when he was here.
Yeah. So it's not him.
I'm going with the guy that had the terrible workout. Who?
DeMontre Moore.
That's who I was thinking of. He had the terrible workout. He had the terrible. That's who. Yeah. How many did he have?
Yeah. And he had, I think it was 14 in a year.
Okay, I can't remember. I thought it was 12, but yeah, I thought that's who I was going with because they talked about his workout being awful because he was supposed to be a first-round pick with all those sacks, and then
But he
I mean,
didn't get picked in the first round. He ended up dropping like a rock in the draft, just like
oh yeah, his combine was terrible. I mean, he had the least amount of reps they've ever had from a defensive lineman or something like that, and
on the
in the
bench
bench.
press.
Oh, it was something totally embarrassing.
It was pretty bad. All right. So anyway, I think those three teams. Obviously, we know what we got in A&M. I mean, look, the last 2 years they've recruited just phenomenal talent at the defensive front. They had that talent has to come out and produce now. You know, you're talking Fidel Diggs, Jason Harris, Donnell Harris, Shamar Turner, Marcus Burris, Brunlo Dindy, McKinley Jackson is an older guy, but Walter Nolan, Adelier, Judy, Lucas. I mean, and there's still guys, Shamar Stewart, guys that are Anai White, Malik Silla. You know, all these guys are basically, except for that I named there, except for McKinley Jackson, are from the last two recruiting classes, right? And
Right.
none of these guys have really seen the field much. So it's a full new group of guys. Somebody's going to have to bring some pressure up front, but those guys should at the very least be very strong up front. And the thing I like about that is that second level is, I think, where we're going to get a lot better with Adrian Cooper and Andre White being able to roam free a little bit at the linebacker spot. And then obviously in the third level, with the experience that we have coming back in the secondary, especially Antonio Johnson, Damani Richardson, Tyreek Chappelle, you know, Jalen Jones, you know, those guys, man, are playmakers. So I think the talent's there. I still think we take a little bit of a step back, but I think we're right in the mix with the Bama's and Georgia defenses as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's going to take time for that defense to adjust to each other, to new faces. But talent-wise, we're second to none. I think the secondary is going to help out since they have more experience back there coming back. And you might call them coverage sacks at first, hopefully. But after that, I mean, I think the defensive line, we're worried about who's going to get the pressure on the ends. I mean, we got enough talent. I think the linebackers are actually going to get pressure a la Alabama. We're going, it's not going to be Anderson type, but we're going to get some pressure from our linebackers. White, especially, who I'm excited about getting up the middle.
And they're going to use the blitz, right? They're going to use the blitz.
Yeah, he's going to come through the gaps. He's going to get after him. But I think our defense overall, as a whole, will be better this year than last year. But a lot of people disagree with me. But hey, our linebacking core is going to be better this year than last year. Our defensive line, we lost a lot of talent, but obviously our talent didn't get drafted in that high in the NFL like we thought they were. So maybe they weren't that good. I don't know. And
a couple of teams, by the way, a couple of teams that may be just below those three, by the way.
Yeah.
Kentucky, Mississippi State. People have sort of.
I think that's a huge drop-off, by the way. When you go from Mississippi State, I mean, they have a lot of returning players back, and so does Kentucky. But the talent level between their returning players and what we have at Alabama, A&M, and Georgia is such a big discrepancy, I think.
Sure, and I agree with you. They don't have the same talent there, but Kentucky, Stoops has done a phenomenal job with that defense since he's been there. As a matter of fact, since 2018, they've been ranked 15th in the nation in points allowed, 12th in pass defense. All right.
Yeah. That says a lot about the SEC East.
Well, it says a lot about the fact that he gets players to play. And he puts them in the right position to make plays, right? Even if they're not quite as talented. And all those 3-star recruits that he gets down there, they end up getting drafted in the first and second round, by the way. While our 5-star recruits end up getting drafted.
He gets like one guy drafted or 2 guys drafted. He got Pascal and what's the other linebacker?
Every
year.
Go look back since 2018.
We'll go look back at it.
Look, and so I believe in that guy. I believe in what he does as an overall scheme and the way he coaches. And I think that defense is still going to be really good. The only thing about it that I would say is there might be a little bit more wide open on offense this year than their numbers may not reflect exactly their, sort of that same level, right?
No, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I mean, and man, once again, I keep going. The East is just you're playing a bunch of teams. I mean, you're going to shut out Vanderbilt every year, and you're going to, Missouri sucks at offense. They can't move the ball. Tennessee, this is last year, is the first year they've been able to move the ball in a while. I mean, Georgia's never been known as an offensive juggernaut. They get up and down the field. Florida, they were good a couple years ago, but last year, what'd they do? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I feel you. Kentucky does have a good defense. Stoops does a good job with what he has, with the talent he has. He doesn't beat himself on defense. They don't lose games because of their defense.
Look, and shifting over to Mississippi State, their defense was sort of under the radar, really good last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
People didn't give them enough credit. Everybody talks about his offense and the things that he's done offensively, and Rodgers, the quarterback, and all those things. But honestly, that team last year was led by that defense more than that offense. They put a hurting on the Aggie offense, as we remember, defensively, but they played really smart. They returned eight players off that defense, by the way, 8 of their starters off the defense.
They'll be solid. They'll be really solid.
They just don't beat themselves, right? Extremely solid, smart. They don't give up the big play, and they're going to force you to be methodical driving the ball down the field. Most teams can't do it.
They just don't have the names. They just don't have the names of that Alabama, A&M, and Georgia have.
100%.
So, yeah, that's all I got.
I think sort of after that group, you've got teams like Auburn, Florida, LSU that, look, they probably have maybe even more talent than maybe the Mississippi State and the Kentuckys.
Oh, yeah.
But they're sort of in limbo. Auburn, we talked about a little bit. Like I said, they changed their coach, this and that, the defense coordinator, but they definitely have some talent. LSU, has talent. I think they probably got one of the top defensive ends, rush guys in the SEC outside of Will Anderson, that's going to have a pretty big year. But once again, they lost a ton of talent, and they're replacing their entire staff. So what do you think? Those three teams, Florida with everything.
I agree with everything you said. I think they're all have a ton of talent. LSU's, they always seem to have one or two good defensive backs that get drafted really high every year. I don't get it. I mean, it's always, and it's just they're just churn them out. And Auburn, like we said, they don't have depth. They have their starting unit could probably go up against the best in the nation, but they're going to run out of gas. Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're right there. I mean, I'd almost put them right there with Mississippi State and Kentucky, just because of talent wise. But I think Kentucky and Mississippi State play it on the field. They'll bring it.
And with regards to LSU, with regards to Florida, that's a group that has a couple pieces. But I think the prior coaching staff, unfortunately for the Gators, didn't really recruit the defensive side of the ball all that well. So that all that talent level that was there when, a few years back, all of a sudden has sort of been depleted. So most of it's in the NFL for a lot of those guys, especially in the secondary, and so I think Napier's got a very difficult job to try to rebuild the talent there. Now, mind you, he's recruiting Florida, so he should be able to do it, right?
Yeah, it's tough. It's gonna be tough for him.
And then sort of an in-between team, and I don't know, maybe a surprise team. South Carolina could be in that group, and I don't know, maybe a little bit worse than some of those teams, but they've really played the transfer game well. They just don't have the talent, right? I like their coaching staff. I like the things that they've done. They just don't have the talent. They can't stop the run because they can't hold up front, which is why A&M just absolutely annihilated them, right? Because we just pounded them. We out-talented them right up the middle and beat the mess out of them, right?
Well, let me tell you, Beamer, the coach there, his dad was known as a defensive and special teams coach at Virginia Tech. He got guys like Bruce Smith to come to Virginia Tech, and I see his son doing the same thing at South Carolina. It's going to take a little bit of time. He had a decent first year, better than what we thought, and this year I think it's only getting better with the transfer portal. But like you said, I don't think their defense is quite there with the next tier. I think they're right below Florida, Auburn, and who were just LSU, just because of pure talent.
Yeah, they need to upgrade the talent, especially on that defensive line, in my opinion. So until they do that, and I think that he will, by the way. I think, like you said,
depth is such a big thing in the SEC. Depth is huge in the SEC because the top tier teams have it and the bottom ones don't. And you can tell after a quarter of play.
Oh, yeah.
They're running out of gas, and the top teams are just I mean, they're making it worse by the second quarter. That's when games really start getting ugly. Is in the second quarter.
Over under in the first half is like 20, and then in the second half it's like 60.
Yeah, it gets bad, man. It gets really bad.
All right, and then a team that we haven't really talked much about, Arkansas.
Oh yeah, Arkansas. They're good. They're pretty good.
They've been pretty good, man, and so they may be in that same grouping with some of these other guys. Barry Odom gets more out of players than a lot of the other defensive coordinators around. The guy's a proven entity in the SEC. He's had a great success there while they're in Arkansas. I mean, and I just think they play really well and smart, on defense. But once again, they don't have the elite talent either.
Now, the thing about Arkansas, it's almost the same story as a Kentucky team. Their offense isn't going to try to put you in a situation to put your back against the wall. Pittman's going to run the ball, control the clock a little bit, move the ball up and down the field, and he's not going to get off the field real fast. So his defense will stay fresh, and a lot of it's coaching. I mean, you'll see the same thing with Kentucky. Kentucky does the same thing. The teams that run the ball, he's not getting up there and hiking the ball real fast. He's like, I'm going to give my defense a little bit of a breather. He might go no huddle, but it's not going to be a quick snap. It's not going to be like an Ole Miss or one of those other teams that get up there and hike it real fast.
That's a great point, man. And that's a big reason why that Arkansas defense is rated as highly as it is exactly what you said. He will take care of them on the offensive side of the ball.
Right.
All right. And I think the four remaining teams, you can I don't know, man. Maybe Ole Miss and Tennessee are a little bit better, but Ole Miss, Tennessee, Missouri, and Vandy, garbage. Unexplainable garbage. Well, Tennessee you can explain because that offense, the way they move the ball and how fast they go, that defense is constantly in a bad position. So you understand sort of how their numbers may be a little bit worse. Ole Miss has had that same problem, except for Ole Miss now. Hell, even Kiffin's own brother doesn't want to coach there. So there's some issues on that side of the ball. I expect them to take a step back defensively at Ole Miss, and they weren't very good last year. They lost, obviously, DJ Durkin as well. So they're going to have some problems. Tennessee and Ole Miss, probably the next level, and then I would say Vandy and Missouri will trail up the back end just like they did last year as some of the worst in the country, not the SEC, in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's, Tennessee, I mean, the crazy thing about the SEC is there's a lot of defensive players returning. If you look through the information, there's a lot of players returning from last year. I mean, a lot of players got drafted from Georgia in the rounds, but there's a lot of defensive players returning overall in the SEC. So the defenses should be pretty strong. Even the bottom tier teams like Tennessee has a lot of players returning. They weren't good, but they're still returning. So, I mean, you think they'd get better. The same thing with who was it? Missouri has some players returning. I know they lost their linebacker that was supposed to be pretty decent. But overall, yeah, the bottom teams are going to be bad.
The one good thing you can say about Missouri's defense here for 2022 is they no longer have Steve Wilkes as their defensive coordinator. I think I called it before last year when they hired Wilkes, and I said that guy was a horrible coach in the NFL. He was a horrible head coach in the NFL. He was a horrible defensive coordinator in the NFL. He's going to be a horrible defense coordinator in college, and their defense just cratered last year, right?
Yeah, I don't remember you saying that at all.
They get rid of him. He's gone. He decided he's got to go back to the NFL because recruiting for him is too much work. And so replacing him may make them better, but they're still not going to be very good.
No, I mean, you got to get talent in there too. You can't get, like we just said about your offense has to help your defense. When your defense isn't that good and your offense is on the field 3 and outs with a quick short pass like they like to do at Missouri, and you're not doing anybody a favor.
And their offense wasn't that good last year either. So
that's what I'm saying. That's what's going to happen. They're going to be on the field. The defense will be on the field a lot. They're going to be worn out. They're not deep, and they're going to give a lot of points.
All right, so that gives you an idea of what we think is going to happen with those defenses next year. I mean, there's no surprise that Vanderbilt and Missouri were the worst teams in the league last year because both their offenses and their defense were really bad. We expect that that's probably going to be the case again next year, but I guess we'll see. Uh, Corey, let's go to some questions from the tailgate brought to you by Rawson Distributing, assisting Aggies with all their drilling needs. Aggie owned and operated. First thing I would like to do is welcome to the show Hollywood and our boy Chuck. Thank you. I also want to thank Rudy Kalui for sharing for sharing our posts on Facebook there. So get your please keep getting us out there, getting our name out there. All right. Question number one: Lost Aggie 66, who lives in Pennsylvania. He said he asked us. He says, I think we can go 11-1, and the one loss will not be Bama, or could also go 12-0 and meet Georgia for the SEC and college football playoffs with either Haynes or Max as the quarterback. Corey, I'm just going to let you comment on that.
Man, I like wherever you're living, man, because you're living up there in a dream world. Because we have too many question marks. We've talked about it. We don't even know who our starting quarterback is. You didn't even go with my choice at quarterback. Talk about Max and Haynes. So I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm an Aggie fan. 11-1. I could see it. 12-0. I mean, our schedule's tougher this year than it was last year. It's going to be hard to go 12-0 any year. But I like where you're going with it. I mean, we have the talent. Yeah. Do we have a quarterback? We have three of them. We don't know who the starter is. We had questions at offensive line still. We have a brand new defensive line, a bunch of talent. Secondary has question marks. Linebackers are better, but I mean, there's question marks everywhere.
Question marks in the play caller too.
Yeah, everywhere. I mean, we have a new defensive coordinator. We don't even know what we're getting into. And he's talking about 11-1, 12-0. Jeez, I was thinking, 9-3 this year just to be safe because, going towards the next season, we have quarterbacks, defensive line returning, offensive line returning. We're going to lose maybe our Achain, our running back, in Smith, but shit, we have our tight ends coming back. A great receiving core coming back, and we have. And no offense against running backs, I think you can plug running backs in these days and get a lot of production, but that's just me.
No, I'm with you, man. 9-3, 10-2, I think are realistic expectations, but I think we've talked about it, and we're going to get into it more over the next couple of weeks as we start shifting over for the next few weeks to some betting lines and over-under win totals and different things, some stuff to look forward to. But I think 11-1 and 12-0 are a little bit over the top, and just for the reasons that you said. I mean, there's probably 7 games on the schedule, which I'd say are going to be competitive. So,
I mean, they're going to be coin flip. You're like, I mean, what's the betting line going to be? It could be 3 points to more. We've already said the A&M line against Alabama is like 17. That's stupid, by the way.
Not in our favor.
No.
Fully agree, man. Fully agree. All right, question 2. I think it's pretty easy to pick the best defensive player in the SEC going into the 22 season. We've talked about it. That's Anderson.
I thought you meant McKinley Jackson. Not McKinley Jackson?
No. Does anyone challenge? I wouldn't say McKinley Jackson's the best player on our own defense, much less in the SEC. Does anyone challenge for that crown? How about any Aggies in the mix, buddy?
Oh, Antonio. I mean, we talked about him. He's going to be a first-round pick, I believe. He's a first-round talent if he stays healthy. Knock on wood. He's up there. Any one of those freshmen. I don't see a defensive lineman freshman.
This coming year. This coming year.
Oh yeah, Johnson. Is he eligible? Yeah, he's eligible, right?
Yeah. I would say that as far as like second best players in the SEC on defense, I'd say Antonio Johnson probably is the best pick out from A&M. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Damani Richardson has a senior year out of his mind, but I don't necessarily anticipate that. The only other guy that I could see having such a breakout year is White. Man. I mean, Cooper at linebacker, right? So,
Yeah.
Man, I think he can make some huge strides, especially if that defensive line really, really holds up and gives him a lot of space to work with. So, but those are the guys. Around the rest of the SEC, by the way, Jalen Carter at Georgia,
Yeah. Georgia will have a couple.
Smith, the cornerback over there, Smith, one of the cornerbacks over South Carolina, is a big time playmaker. The edge player Smith out of Georgia is also another guy. Eli Ricks at Alabama at the cornerback position, the defensive end from Auburn that you love, Hall, right? He's a guy that could be in that mix. So there's obviously plenty of talent coming back in the SEC on the defensive side of the ball that can sort of make a name for themselves in 2022. But those are just some of the names, man. Anything else you got, buddy?
That's it, man. Can't wait to do it again. I want to talk some football lines next time we get on. I want to see what future picks, what we have, because these betting lines are getting to me that we can't make our bets anymore. So
betting lines coming, baby. Betting lines coming. Gig 'em, Aggies. AP Corey signing out from the tailgate. Hey.